Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. We have back on the show today Dr. Eric Zielinski here to share with us some amazing information about essential oils, the powerful concentrated herbal medicine that you might not be aware of. He co-authored his latest book with his wife, Sabrina Zielinski, otherwise known as Mama Z, the Essential Oils Apothecary. I'm a really big fan of this book, and I know you will be too. You can go to learntruehealth.com/EO. That's learntruehealth.com/EO to pre-order his book, or if you're listening to this later on and it's already out, then you'll be ordering that book. But if you go to that link, he gives you hundreds of dollars worth of his information for free, videos and all kinds of stuff and recipes, and he really just gives you so much. So instead of buying it, now you can always go and buy his books from other booksellers like Amazon. However, if you buy it straight from his website, he gives you a ton of fantastic freebies that aid you in your journey of increasing your health. And if you're new to essential oils, welcome. You're going to learn a ton today. And if you are a seasoned user of essential oils, you are going to be learning some great tricks to increasing your life in every area of your life by adding essential oils to it. I love the recipes that he shares today. I also just recently interviewed his wife, so I'll be publishing that as well very soon. Dr. Eric Z was on the show in episode 302 and 363. So you can go back and listen to episode 302 and 363. He talks about the essential oils diet, and we get really deep into the safety of essential oils, how to safely use them, because there's a lot of controversy out there, and if you use them wrong, it can hurt you, just like any herb. If used incorrectly, can hurt you. So just like too much water could hurt you if you drink too much water, too much of a good thing is not a good thing anymore. So he does talk about how to use essential oils safely. But I love that in the Essential Oils Apothecary, it will be such a powerful resource to have in your home, to open up during times of needing more like first aid or triage, or sometimes with chronic things like sleep problems or hormone issues. You'll be able to come to it in times of need and improve the quality of your life and your family's life. Now you can get his book by going to learntruehealth.com/EO. That's learntruehealth.com/EO. When I did interview him, this was back in early March. And since I did this interview, and he asked for me to wait until his book was on pre-order. So it was a few months ago that I did this interview. A lot has changed in my life since. If you're a regular listener, you'll know I lost a child during birth, during labor. And then a few days later, I got COVID. And then I immediately had to pack up and Marie Kondo our entire life and move from 2,700 square foot house that we lived in for 7 years into what is probably somewhere between 300 and 400 square feet. So we're loving where we live now, not complaining. I'm just kind of laying out the foundation of how much has happened in the last few months of my life, that there's been chaos and turmoil and a lot of things, a lot of emotions to process. And I've taken what I learned in today's interview and utilized it to help me. So I hope that, because I know that this has helped me, I hope it'll help you as well. So enjoy today's interview, and please join us in the Facebook group, Learn True Health Facebook group. We'd love to see you there. Also, please share this episode with those you care about, especially your friends who use essential oils, as they will love the information that they learn from Dr. Z. Enjoy today's show and go to learntruehealth.com/EO. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 466. I am so excited for today's guest. We have back on the show Dr. Eric Zielinski. Dr. Eric, you were here in episode 302 and 363. You have a library of wonderful books that you've published, and you and your wife do this together, coming up with these amazing recipes. You've taught how to use essential oils in different ways, in safely always, in ingesting them sometimes in our cooking, because it's a form of herbal medicine, but it's a very concentrated form of herbal medicine. So we need to be careful, and you teach the safety of that, and you teach how to make sure that we're getting the quality essential oils, what to look for in different brands. I love that you don't align yourself with one specific brand, because that way we know that we can go out there and look for what you say to look for. So there's so much we can learn from Dr. Eric. And today you're here to talk about your latest book coming up, The Essential Oils Apothecary, which I'm particularly excited about, because you take it into this chronic illness and disease and many other ailments, going really deep into how we can heal the body and using this specific type of herbal medicine. I think for those who haven't really experienced essential oils, I think that the atmosphere, or the idea that they're sort of like just smelly oils, that they're like spa day smelly oils. And I don't think that a lot of people truly understand their intense healing properties. Very, very, very concentrated healing essences of plants. Maybe you could just start off the interview, and you have shared your bio in the past interviews, so listeners can go back and listen to 302 and 363 to get to learn more about you. But I'd like to start off, for those who don't know deeply, have a deep understanding of how healing and powerful essential oils are. Can you explain why is it that, well, essential oils aren't just this fun, smelly spa day thing, that they're actually, it's a concentrated form of herbal medicine. But can you explain why is it that essential oils have such strong healing properties?
Of course. And first of all, thank you for having me. It's my privilege and sincere pleasure, because I love you. You're the best. And I am so proud of you. I mean, you're doing such a great job. And I love, the segue into your question is, I love how you continue to deliver to your community. And that really is the essence of what we do, and what the importance of the literature continues to show about essential oils. I mean, traditionally speaking, plant-based medicine since the beginning of time. Okay, I get that. And aromatherapists have been using them forever in certain ways. But like you, we, in my space, as a non-branded, evidence-based essential oil researcher, this is cutting edge, where researchers are today looking at how plant-based volatile organic compounds, volatile meaning they readily evaporate, organic meaning they're carbon-based, compounds meaning that there are a ton of chemicals, like 200 to 300 different chemicals in the essential oil, right? Like D-limonene, pinene, like I'm not talking bad stuff. I'm talking like actual chemicals that are good from nature. So it's cutting edge research. And so we have this tradition where before the advent of the antibiotic, what did people use? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't living back then. I mean, think about that. Like, people don't even know. Most people alive today don't even know what life's like without the antibiotic. The antibiotic came around in the mid-40s, and it was the solution to basically every infection. And you can basically take what we see in nature that we know, that, by the way, this is pretty cool for you history buffs out there. Medics, frontline medics, combat medicine, World War I, World War II. You open up their medicine kit, you'd find essential oils.
Which ones?
Lavender.
No
You'd find
way.
oregano. You'd find thyme. You'd find tea tree. And you know what you'd find? You'd find the ones that were indigenous to their culture, like Australia, eucalyptus tea tree. America, you'd have you'd have like peppermints and some of the other herbal oils. You go to you go to France, obviously, lavender, right? You go to Italy, you'll get the citrus oils. That is the key to a lot of this, is throughout the history of time, people always used what was available to them, because they didn't have Walmart. They didn't have airplanes shipping plants that were not indigenous to their area. So when you're looking at true healing, when you're looking at true abundance of health, it really starts in your backyard because your biochemistry matches the biochemistry of the soil and the plants. And there used to be this wonderful harmony. And we kind of, messed that up a little bit. But, I enjoy traveling and I enjoy, mangoes and things that don't naturally grow in Georgia. But what we have here is this concept that we have what we need in nature. So at the end of the day, they work because that is essentially that's essentially what we interact with in a way at a biological level. And so I'll leave you with one little quick analogy as I'm thinking through this. I'm sorry, because I'm thinking through like, well, I don't get it. Well, what do we think our ancestors used for pain before, Advil or Bayer? I mean, when you go through different plants and when you go through different solutions, you would have chemicals that people realize, oh, this is kind of anti-inflammatory. They just knew, oh, it just made me feel better. And when you're looking at, for example, the willow tree, our ancestors used willow bark and they used to make a paste out of it and a salve out of it. And well, when you extract the chemicals in willow bark, there's a salicylate type of chemical in it, know that, in the salicylate family. Well, if you manufacture it and you put a shiny white pill on it, you can call it aspirin. And that's essentially how every drug today, up until now, the different technology that they have, up until recently, every drug on the market had some basis of the chemistry that they find in plants. It's not like a chemist would just invent a chemical structure in her head. I mean, you had to base it off of something that you knew worked because that's how the body works. The body has receptors around cells, and the body has neurological impulses that could be triggered based off of the chemicals that it interacts with the food and the things that are in the air, like those volatile organic compounds that are being emitted from the trees. And all of it just makes sense at a biological level. Well, that's the basis for medicine. And so, bam, that hit me like a ton of bricks several years ago. And that's when I literally transformed my medicine cabinet. And that's when the symptoms went away. That's when I started feeling better in every area of life because I wasn't using toxic substances to manage things anymore.
Mm-hmm. So if someone's in pain, let's say that let's just choose a headache. Like maybe it's like a tension headache, for example. What essential oil or blend of oils would you go to?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'll give a quick list because they all work depending on how you respond to it. And I think that's key. If I could, I want to preface this whole talk because I know we're going to drop a lot of cool little truth bombs and recipes and things. Um, we are individual. So I'm a 41-year-old Caucasian whose ancestry is from Poland. My biological makeup is uniquely distinct. And the melanin on my skin and the way that my skin interacts with the sun and the way that my skin interact, which is key because this is topical we're talking, right? It's uniquely different than a 75-year-old, let's say African woman from Kenya. All right. So knowing that, we need to find what works for us. So like a doctor practices medicine to figure out, okay, which concoction of chemotherapy and radiation surgery is going to help this person. We practice, essential oils, aromatherapy. So that to say, here's my wonderful list off the top of my head because they've worked for us and countless people. First, something menthol based like eucalyptus or peppermint. One oil specifically that comes to mind is rich in D-limonene, and no one talks about it in relation to pain, but that's orange. Orange has a profound anti-pain effect, but it also helps with depression and helps with anxiety, helps boost different moods. It's wonderful. Copaiba. Copaiba is rich in beta-caryophyllene. Beta-caryophyllene is a chemical, again, plant-based chemical, that triggers the endocannabinoid system. It works just like CBD. So it has a
Mm.
CBD type of pain-relieving property. A lot of folks swear that frankincense is the solution to everything but death, but I've heard that frankincense, because it's inherently anti-inflammatory, can also help. Like, what is the cause of your pain? If the cause of your pain is, typically speaking, an inflammatory cause, then you can find a number of oils that will work.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that idea. So when someone has more melanin in their skin, they have darker skin, how does that affect their absorption of essential oils?
Yeah, you know what? I wish I had a direct answer because I have not seen any research on that. I do know that the photosensitivity of essential oils greatly depends on how the essential oils interact with the UV rays and how that gets absorbed in the skin. So inherently, someone with a lot of melanin in their skin, you don't have to worry about sunburn per se. You don't have to worry about exposure because through ancestry, you're in the sub-Sahara Africa, and you have that natural resistance. So what I posit to people and what I'm proposing is that, like, for people that have sensitive skin, especially Scandinavian people, you have to be careful that you need to dilute essential oils potentially more than someone who has, like, I don't say thicker skin, but skin that isn't as sensitive. So that's where I've seen, as again, it's a generalization, and I know we can't generalize when it comes to healthcare, but the theory would be that someone might need to have a stronger dose when they apply topically, and they don't necessarily have to worry about photosensitivity like other people. And that brings up a whole other topic. Who's talking about putting on bergamot oil and not going outside? Like, that is a known
Mm.
risk. People are burning themselves. Like, there was
Mm-hmm.
there was a documentary on Netflix that we were recently featured in, and the part of the story was this poor woman who got, like, I forget what it was, forgive me, like third-degree burns because she applied essential oils and it ended up interacting with, I believe she was in a tanning bed. And
Oh.
the thing is that there's a chemical in bergamot, bergaptan, right? Well, it kind of makes sense, bergaptan, bergamot, that exemplifies the UV rays, and that could cause extreme burns on people. So, well,
Mm.
again, depending on the melanin content, that is not as a concern. But when it comes to the therapeutic benefits of it, I can't show one way or another, but I do know it does affect safety risks.
So if people of different skin tone were using essential oils at night before they go to bed, for example, the dosage wouldn't matter. It's during the day when their skin is going to be exposed to sunlight. Certain essential oils can react with UV rays. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes. So this is, quite frankly, hotly debated in the aromatherapy community, and I have my own take on, basically, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. Right? There's balance in everything. This
Mm-hmm.
this maybe we'll talk about ingestion because I have a dozen plus capsule remedies straight from the research that trying to help people balance blood pressure and blood sugar, for crying out loud. But aromatherapists will say, like, I'm committing blasphemy because I'm properly teaching how to ingest oils. As controversial as ingestion is, the same thing is, okay, what do we recommend to people? So here's the bottom line. And this is coming straight from Robert Tisserin's Essential Oil Safety Manual. The key here is primarily undiluted, aka neat, essential oil use. Now, that right there is full concentration of oil. Like, for 99.9% of all your topical preparations, you need to dilute your essential oils. It just makes sense. Like, here's the thing. I'm as natural, and we talked about this right before we just got on. I'm as natural in granola. My wife's delivered our babies at home in a hot tub. Like, we're those people. Like, we are the natural granola family.
I think
And
that's normal, by the way. Like that to me just seems normal, not like extreme or crunchy. And going to the hospital when you are healthy, your baby's healthy, and absolutely no risks. Going to a hospital seems just not normal to me. So in my mind, like there's a scale of what's normal and healthy and what's like abnormal and not healthy. Going to a drug every time you have a symptom is not normal and not healthy to me, right? To other people, to mainstream society, that is normal, right? So if you want, and I've said this before on the show, if you want to live like a statistic, remember 1 out of every 3 people will develop cancer in their lifetime. 1 of every 3 people are obese, have type 2 diabetes, or are about to have type 2 diabetes, have high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease. I mean, the top killers are chronic disease, are cardiovascular, cancer. You know, look at what people are suffering from and dying from. If you want that, if you want to be a statistic, do what everyone else is doing. If you don't want to be a statistic, we need to be the salmon. We need to like examine everything and examine our belief system and go, why is it normal, quote unquote normal, to take a drug like aspirin, right? Instead of ingest a little essential oil or rub a little essential oil on me. Why is rubbing an essential oil on me considered crazy, but taking a drug by, synthetic drug that can have side effects and deplete the body of nutrients, quote unquote normal, right? Why is it quote unquote normal and accepted to go to a hospital for a healthy birth rather than do it at home for a healthy birth, in which less interventions will occur? And there are many studies worldwide that show greater successful outcomes for both mother and baby if you can avoid a hospital. Now, again, that is not to say if you have complications, yes, we want emergency medicine available to us. The problem is the moment you step into a hospital for a healthy birth, you are going to get interventions that cascade into more interventions, That's a whole other interview right there. But this is it. We need to start, if you want to have different health, it all starts with your mindset. It all starts with you questioning the reality you have been brought up in, questioning the reality that we are taught is normal by the mainstream. We have to question everything. And we have to go, wait a second, why is it that I blindly have accepted this my whole life? Why have I blindly accepted that the pediatrician gets to do this and not that? Why am I accepting that this is the way it is? And instead question everything, do the research, learn from doctors like Dr. Eric Z, because man, you look like an extremist to some people, and yet your entire family, now 5 beautiful children and your wife and yourself, are of peak health. We all want to be as healthy as you guys. And we've got to start by questioning the decisions that we make and the belief system we have around health. And I know my listeners are really awake to this. That's why they're here listening to you. I myself had a very bad burns, not from essential oils, but from putting citrus on my skin. My parents and I were in Mexico many years ago, and we squeezed some limes in our hair because we were like, oh, we're going to bleach our hair, in the sun. And our skin, blood rushed to the surface of our skin, and we got really bad burns. And we actually had to be put on bleach cream, believe it or not. I was like a teenager, and didn't question that. But the doctor said, the skin doctor said, it was, we're going to end up with these big birthmarks that would just basically turn brown and be there for a really long time if we didn't. And he said, yeah, the skin in UV reacts to citrus. So you can't do that. You can't just put citrus, because it was like going down our face and we didn't realize it. And that wasn't concentrated like essential oils are concentrated. So I can only imagine that we have to be really careful because this is medicine. Just because it's from a plant doesn't mean it doesn't have its own set of side effects, right? However, the side effects from aspirin can be far greater. I have a friend who had a really bad abscess in his tooth, and it was like a Friday, and dentist couldn't see him till Monday. So he started chewing on aspirin like it was candy, and by Sunday he went blind. And I remember him calling me being like, I can hardly hear anything. He started to lose he lost his vision, and he started to lose his hearing. And I'm like yelling at him, stop taking the aspirin. He had given himself aspirin poisoning. A naturopathic friend of mine explained that, this is Dr. Megan Saunders. She's been on the show a few times, and she said, willow bark, if you take willow, let's say you make a tea out of it or some kind of thing that you're ingesting, there are components, like there's thousands of chemicals, like you've mentioned, in a plant, right? So willow, if you were to ingest willow bark, you get to a point, if you take too much of it, there's something in willow bark that makes you vomit it back up. There's safety mechanisms in nature. Not with every plant, right? Because some plants, some plants are poisonous and toxic to the body, but in certain medicinal plants, if you don't extract and make a drug out of it, right? If you just have it as in its whole form, it won't let you overconsume it. Whereas when they take aspirin, they remove those nature's safety mechanisms from it so that you can take a concentrated form, which is potentially life-threatening. So with essential oils, we're left with something far safer, and yet I love that you start off this conversation with the things we really need to be careful of, because someone who's never used essential oils can douse themselves in it, go out in the sun, get a third-degree burn, and then say essential oils are BS and never use them again. And I'd rather everyone be safe. So thank you for saying yes. We have to be careful. These are extremely concentrated forms of plants, so you're not just taking bergamot like you're eating a bergamot. You're actually eating pounds of it. If you were to start taking the drops, maybe you could explain concentration a bit and
Well, exactly.
right.
Your analogy was perfect with willow. I mean, that was the danger of consuming a natural compound in its whole form poses itself if you overdo it. And then when you concentrate it, that's why wintergreen can be toxic when you consume it, because
Mm.
in whole form, because of the same chemical compound. Circling back to the photosensitizers, I want to give y'all, for those people who want to take notes and who are really diving deep here at this point, I want to give you the list from the book of those oils that are phototoxic. And just a quick summary of it is the bottom line is I'm not concerned about using oils and interacting with the sun. I have found that I, as a rule of thumb, if you're going to put potentially photosensitizing oils on your skin, always dilute them to about a 2% dilution. What's that fancy way of saying you got 600 drops in an ounce? So start with an ounce of a carrier oil like olive oil or coconut oil, and 2% of 600 is 12, right? So that would mean 12 drops of essential oil added to 1 ounce of a carrier. That's a highly diluted 2%. If you use your 2%, that's our body care, by the way. Like that's what we use
Mm.
every day for just our day to day, our moisturizer, and what we anoint our kids with before we kick them out to school. We dose them up with some vanilla and orange, and they smell like a creamsicle, and they're happy, and the teachers love them because they're like a walking diffuser. So you start with your 2% and avoid, this is key, avoid direct contact. It's a good idea for about an hour. And here's why I say that, because some aromatherapists say, like you mentioned, well, at night, is it fine for the next day? Here's what we see. Your skin will start to absorb, because essential oils are transdermal. They're lipophilic, hydrophobic, fat-loving, water-hating, volatile organic compounds. Your skin will absorb them immediately. There's going to be very, very little residue after an hour. At that point, they're either going to evaporate out because they're volatile, or they're going to seep into your bloodstream, which is cool. But here's the list of oils you need to be concerned about. And I'll start with yours, even though I was going to read alphabetical, but lime. Lime is a photosensitizer. So's angelica root, bergamot, like I mentioned, bitter orange, cumin, grapefruit, lemon, and rue. And so it's something to keep in mind. I think dill. I don't know why I don't have dill. I got to go back to that. I think dill as well. I'm going to put dill with an asterisk, but not many people want to smell like dill. So anyway, you don't have to worry about that. So that is the start to that's the list. That's the list right there that we know, and this is traditional aromatherapy.
You know, you bring up Dylan. I just have memories of my son. He had colic really, really, really bad when he was a baby, and we would dilute dill and massage his tummy with it to help,
Mm.
because it was one of those safe for babies. You got to be careful with babies. Can't do like any kind of peppermint or menthol, which I was surprised about, because it liquefies the mucus, and then they don't have the ability to cough it back up. But dill was one of those safe ones, and it gave him relief. And I just remember, so anytime I smell dill, I'm brought back to that time of massaging a tiny baby tummy and trying to soothe his colic.
Oh,
Yeah. Why do you put orange and vanilla on your children?
I I don't know anyone. I'm not kidding. I haven't met anyone who doesn't like that smell. I
Well,
mean, this is
okay,
the
it smells
dreamsicle
good.
creamsicle smell.
No, no, it
But
smells good, but like, is it because it's like antiviral? Is it because it like calms them and makes them so they're like better at learning? Like what's your like besides the fact that they smell good? Like, what is your parental reason behind it?
yeah, it's primarily one. I mean, believe it or not, like there is the element where um, the happy smell produces a happy response, and that is proven. I mean, orange is a proven antidepressive. So yeah, it's rich in D-limonene. It's anti-inflammatory. It stimulates the immune system. It helps balance your mood. Vanilla is just vanilla is wonderful. It's calming. It's not a sedative per se, but it really helps balance people, and it also balances the aroma of it blends well. And that's the other thing is when we talk about aromatherapy, there's a known concept of creating like a synergy blend. And this is something that we need to keep in mind. And again, I found that. I found that orange and vanilla. And again, I think there's a reason though. There's a reason why dream creams and the dreamsicles or the orange Julius is like when you look at traditional food recipes too, like this is a known synergy. Like it just tastes good. It just smells good. Like, but it's also like instinctively it does well for the body. It like compounds things. So yeah, orange is good by itself and vanilla is good by itself, but combined together, it's like, wow, it's like superheroes, right? When you combine the power of superheroes together, for us, we're a Marvel family. Like that's when we can, yeah, that's when all the superheroes can, prevent global domination. But by him or herself, a superhero is limited. So when you look at aromatherapy blends, there are known
Hmm.
synergistic effects that happen. And I want to point out one thing, and this is, and I know we could talk because we got a little extra time than other interviews that like you got to stop at 30 minutes. It's so hard to get everything on 30 minutes. But when here's the problem with drugs. All right, here's the
Can I
problem
make
with
that the title of
drugs.
the show? Here's
Yeah,
the problem with drugs. All
here
right,
is the
we're
problem with
going off
drugs.
on this tangent. It's going to be a 4 hour interview. Here's the problem with drugs. I'm sorry. I just love that.
You
Yeah.
can't fraction out a
Yeah.
chemical and expect it to perform in a desired effect when it's out of context. Chew on this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we find. Yes, again, let's go to limonene. It's we talked about it a lot, but limonene, antidepressant, limonene, anti-inflammatory, shown to kill cancer cells. Research has shown that when you extract limonene, even if it's like quote unquote natural form, it will not have as potent and therapeutic of an effect as if you were to use orange oil in its whole form. And that's what drugs are based off of.
Mm-hmm.
They take a chemical that they know, like menthol, like the salicylates, like you're mentioning from willow, and like, okay, this chemical is the main chemical that does this main desired result. Let's build a preservative effect around it and let's create a whole system based off of this one compound.
And then
But it's
patent
out
it.
of context.
And then patent it. Make a chemical, patent it so we can make money. I
Yes.
mean,
And that's
it has to be synthetic enough to be patented because you
yes.
can't patent nature. Um,
Exactly. So
Josh,
that's why
right.
oils work the way they do, because you're looking at a cornucopia of 200 to 300 chemicals in one drop.
That all synergistically work together. That this is like
Yes.
Mother Nature, God intended.
Yes.
This is the, you know, I always want to go. I always want to go somewhere spiritual when we talk about healing with plants.
Yeah,
I always have this.
please.
I always have this urge to go somewhere spiritual. I know that there are listeners out there who don't relate to that. Maybe atheists, and in no way mean to put them off because I think some people go, well, if you're not talking about science, then I don't want to hear about it. There's so much science in this that Dr. Z can talk about the science all day long. And let's just for 1 minute go somewhere just an appreciation for nature. It is so beautiful and miraculous when we examine these herbs and the healing properties and the hundreds of chemicals that work together that have this synergistic effect that help the body kill cancer, decrease inflammation. All essential oils have antimicrobial properties. Some are more than others. Like, lavender would be, and I'm just guessing, you know more than I do, but like lavender would be less than oregano, right? But oregano is kind of like a nuclear bomb for for certain microbes,
Hmm,
right?
hmm,
Whereas
hmm.
lavender is something gentle you can use on a baby. Um, but they all have antimicrobial properties. When I was a teenager, at my summer job, I worked at a holistic spa, and I was the front desk lady. Every summer, I just loved this job, and I got really involved in studying all the things we sold because it wasn't like a bunch of face creams. It was like a bunch of essential oils. It was like a bunch of herbs and stuff like that. My boss is super, was super, still is. She's no longer my boss, but she is still super into crunchy granola hippie stuff, like the healing stuff. So when you came into her spa, it was about how can we heal by not putting chemicals in our body. And this is back in the 90s. That was, nowadays it's a little bit more accepted, but back then, it was kind of revolutionary. So you walk into a spa and you're having more of a whole health experience. And so she gave me a bunch of books and CDs to study, and I was about 14 or 15 to study essential oils, and it was all new to me. And I'm like, oh, these are all smell good, and some of them don't smell good, and I'm studying it. And then one day and I think I might have told this before on the show, but one day I wake up and I have the stomach flu, just bad. It was fever, vomiting, other symptoms that are in line with the stomach flu, and I couldn't go to work that day. And so my mom calls my boss, who was they were friends, and my boss says, "Okay, Cheryl, come on over. I've got something for Ashley." And so my mom comes home with a bottle of lavender and a bottle of peppermint from the spa, and she makes a pot of hot water and puts one drop of peppermint in it. She gets about an ounce or two of olive oil, because that's the only oil we had in the house at the time, and she puts a few drops of lavender. This is what my boss told her to do. She rubs the lavender on my stomach and my chest. She tells me to smell, to sniff, and to sip the tea, which was ingesting the peppermint essential oil. I did both. I immediately fell asleep. I stopped vomiting. I immediately fell asleep. And when I woke up, my fever had broken and my
Yep.
gastrointestinal issues were gone.
Yep. Yep.
My stomach upset was gone. Like everything was, I felt kind of like I had been through something, but I no longer had the stomach flu. Gone. And I was from that day forward, I was in love with essential oils. I began to study feverishly. Anyone that came in the spa was going to buy an essential oil for me, because I was like telling them all about how amazing they are. The fact that they absorb through the skin and go in between the cells in the lymphatic system, right? And that's
Yep.
why when you get an essential oil massage, it's a lymphatic massage typically. They help the cells communicate better between each cell. They help kill microbes, but they don't kill good microbes like good gut bacteria. Oh, just on and on and on and on, learning about how amazing essential oils are, and how we can incorporate them. But then I had an experience where we got so passionate about them, we diffused them 8 hours a day. And the diffuser was right beside the esthetician. And the esthetician comes in a few days after. We were just constantly adding essential oils to the diffuser, because we thought, if a little is good, a lot is better. She came in, and her entire right side of her body, which was the part of her body that was closest facing to the diffuser, was one giant like pimple, was one
Mm.
giant breakout.
Yep. Yep.
And she told me she felt stoned. She goes, I feel really weird. I feel stoned. And this was before we opened up the spa that morning. She goes, I have to tell you that I had a really shady past. I used to be involved in street drugs, and I kind of feel like I've done heroin or meth or something. I feel like that. And her and I talked it out. And again, I'm a teenager. I don't know as much as I know now, but her and I figured out that we were diffusing way too much essential oils. It caused her to have too much of a detox reaction too quickly, and the street drugs that were still sort of stuck in her system were kind of like releasing, and her liver couldn't handle it and her skin couldn't handle it. And so we looked more into it and realized we only should be diffusing once a week, not every day, 10 times a day. So that had me go, wait a second, there's more to this. There's more to essential oils than just they're fun smelly oils that you can do as much as you want. Like, we have to really be careful. So again, I love that you're bringing up cautions, but I don't want people to get so afraid they don't use them, because
No, no, and that's
they're
why we do what
amazing.
we do with our kids. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
instinctively, my wife came up with this orange and I guess the anchor of this part of the talk is this orange vanilla blend because her mom struggled through postpartum depression and she
Mm.
didn't want that to happen. So my wife always loved that smell, and that was like her anchor. And that's why it kind of just became like this family blend. But little like oftentimes the things that we do, and I think this is kind of bringing back, like you mentioned earlier, about spiritual piece. What about the intuitive piece? Like, there's something known as the organoleptic evaluation with how we interact with the essential oil, and it focuses on the five senses, but the sixth sense is part of this. Like, how do you perceive? What are you intuitively yearning for? And so, yeah, our family intuitively has been drawn to this. But you know what? Now this is how things work. I mean, I've seen this over and over again with nature and plant-based medicine. A few years ago, a study was done on, roughly 80 people in a hopeless situation. Now, how relevant is that today? I don't know of anyone who has not had a little bit of hopelessness in the last year and a half or so, depending on what persuasion you are, whether it's political, whether it's healthcare, whether it is social. Like, there is so many social, right? There's so many hopeless situations that we've had to deal with as a society. So they put people into a hopeless situation. And this is fascinating. This is why this is so relevant to today. The people were asked to solve an unsolvable social discrimination task. It's basically like saying you have to solve racism right now, and they gave them a hard task. And that created hopelessness because, well, I can't do it. Well, during this task, again, I'm not they couldn't solve it within like a time period or something. During this task, they were diffusing D-limonene and vanillin, which is the main component of vanilla, basically orange and vanilla. And they were asking the volunteers to rate the aroma's quality, whether it was intense or pleasant or familiar. And, before and after and during their hopelessness exercise. Like, who would sign up for a hopelessness exercise? Oh, God. Thank God for subjects and volunteer people. So, fascinatingly, this is the key, the more pleasant the participants judged the aroma. Basically, they felt it was good in the room, they liked it, it was nice to them, the less effective the hopelessness induction was in
Oh.
reducing happiness and increase their mood. So basically, what did we do? I don't know about you, but I dealt with a lot of hopelessness when I was a kid. And this study, and I got to get in front of people, or whatever. Like, we didn't realize, but intuitively, and now we know because, we've been educated on it, we send our kids off to school with this orange vanilla blend, already putting them at an advantage so that if they will get into a hopeless situation at school, they're going to feel better and they're going to be more empowered to get through it. And regardless of what happens around them, like our teachers always say, well, your kids are always so happy. And, that's by design. Like, we understand if all hell can be breaking loose around you, you could be in the midst of the worst situation possible. But if it is well with your soul, if you're happy and joyful, some people might call you gullible or ignorant, like Forrest Gump. I will tell you one thing. We could tease Forrest Gump for, stupid is as stupid does, but that guy, that is a great example of how someone who is at peace and at joy and happiness, content in whatever situation that he's in, it's
Mm-hmm.
great to see how someone can overcome all odds. And so ultimately, why do we do what we do? Is because we know it works and it has a desired effect.
So psychologically, any essential oil, as long as you really enjoy the smell, would help you have more happiness and less hopelessness.
Yes.
So, in your book, The Essential Oils Apothecary, I'm sure you have a section on depression, mental health, possibly even postpartum. Um, Beyond your orange and vanilla, what suggestions do really work effectively for these situations?
So, going back, and so here's one thing. Like, the problem, not problem, but let's call out the elephant in the room. The problem with that study was it was a limonene and vanillin study. Again, they extracted out the chemical. It was natural based, but still, if and this is what chemists do, because chemists are trying to hack into the chemicals that they can create drugs. If they would have used orange and vanilla, I guarantee you it would have had a more desired effect and it would have been better. So what does that tell us? Like, for example, D-limonene, which is a chemical that is rich in all citrus oils, top to bottom, orange, grapefruit, neroli, lime, bergamot, lemon, petit grain. Like, these oils should be in everyone's toolkit if they want to boost their mood, like proven. And
Mm.
so again, goes back to this is why, by the way, I like those studies, because here's the problem though. Again, I guess let's be honest. If they would have done an orange and vanilla study, well, what exactly in the orange helped? That's where it's like, they, out of the 300 chemicals in orange or whatever it is, I don't know, they're all different, 150, 200 chemicals in orange, which one was the deciding factor? Well, they guessed ahead of time, well, it's probably D-limonene. And so that's how they proved it. So that is the wonderful thing about it. And we find that limonene can help with substance abuse and addiction too. Limonene, a recent study uncovered that greatly reduces drug addiction related behaviors and dependence in lab rats. So they had, cocaine addicted lab rats or whatever it was. I forget. I'm sorry, heroin or something, but it was drug addiction, and they incorporated limonene, and it greatly reduced the addictive behaviors and the dependence. Like, that's why in my book I have a chapter. It's called Depression and Substance Abuse. Well, that seems weird. Why would you combine them two? Because they're so intricately connected. And we find, again, the same chemicals in the oils that work, and the same oils that work for one will work for the other. And so that's where the hopelessness comes into play. I was an addict. I get it. I was an alcoholic. I was abusing street drugs. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, and hopelessness was the common denominator in my life for those several
Mm-hmm.
years. And it was a dark hole that I self-medicated with street
Mm-hmm.
drugs and alcohol, and just to get the high, just to get through the next day, just because I hated my life.
Mm-hmm.
And sad to say, how many people can relate to that right now? At one point last year, Ashley, at one point during the pandemic, there were more people dying of suicide in Japan than there were people dying of COVID.
Yeah.
Same thing with children in America.
Mm-hmm.
More kids were killing themselves than kids dying of the virus.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And I'll tell you, having having faced the demon of suicide ideation, thinking about, meditating on, wondering, and kind of contemplating how and where, I get that. And it's hopelessness. That's really the key. And so if there's something we could do to boost that, to essentially hack into the system, you know what that would be realistically? Go out in nature. Go out in nature, go on a hike. Why? Because pinene, limonene, other anti-inflammatory rich compounds are being emitted from the plants and trees. That's why things like forest bathing, which, I know you've had people on your show talk about before, that's why that has been shown to help people. So the problem is, when someone's already stressed out, like they have been for the last year and a half, the whole world's crumbling, everything. Like, it's just like, how much more can we handle as a people? And then you stick them inside their cardboard box all day. It's like the perfect storm for absolute hopelessness. And no wonder we're dealing with this huge, huge, true pandemic of mental health conditions. And what have I found myself doing? Craving to be outside. And when I can't be outside, because, I'm grateful to be able to do what I do, but, I'm stuck in my house. I can't do this interview outside. People will get distracted. It'll be horns horning or birds chirping or whatever. Like, I got to have a microphone. I'm in front of my computer. But guess what I have diffusing? Oils that are from trees. I love the cedar woods, the sandalwoods, the Douglas firs, the pine. If I can't be out into a forest, I'm going to bring the forest inside.
I love that. Bringing the medicinal properties of the forest inside if you can't get out into it. And some people can't. Some people aren't mobile. Some people don't live near forests. So you're bringing what you know is a healing property. And of course, I mean, there's other healing properties of being in a forest, but that the fact that we don't even realize that we're inhaling medicinal properties being released by plants while we're outside is that amazing?
When you cut your grass and you smell, and I love that. I actually love the smell of fresh cut grass. What do you think that is? I mean, that's the essential oil from the grass. And quite frankly, I'm surprised. Well, actually, we do have it. It's called lemongrass, right? That's a known essential oil that's been shown to help with everything from killing MRSA to pain to helping balance blood cholesterol levels, right? We talk about that in our cardiovascular disease chapter. But, people aren't distilling the grass that we see in our lawns and creating a diffuser blend out of it. I think that's kind of coming next. I think we're going to see more people getting back to those things that they love. The nature, again, you're right, to your point. There's negative ions being emitted. There's the beautiful sounds. You know what? Research has proven that listening to sounds of nature have a more desired effect, puts you in the parasympathetic rest, digest, calm, meditative, that empowering state versus sounds of industry, sounds of modernization, industrial society like cars, motors, engines, whatever it might be, just the hum, hum, hum of your HVAC unit. Those sounds, those non-nature sounds trigger a sympathetic fight or flight response. So you're out in nature, you're hearing those natural sounds from the birds and the whistling of the trees or the rustling of the leaves, and you're seeing there's actually a word, because I've been studying a lot, especially for my book about forest bathing. There's actually a word in Japan that I couldn't pronounce to save my life that describes the type of sun that shines through the leaves. It's like this golden, beautiful, heavenly ray. And we have no words in English to describe that, but it's like a word to describe that particular light that shines through the trees. Like you're getting that now, so you're stimulating the ocular senses, the sight, and then now you're stimulating the olfactory system because you're breathing those chemical compounds that are being emitted from the plants. And then hopefully you can maybe barefoot yourself or get to a point where you can earth and ground and just be rooted again. And now you're in a position where you can truly be one with nature and heal. And here's the cool thing about forest bathing too, is it's been proven, to stimulate and boost it considerably. We're talking considerable production of natural killer cells, and also anti-inflammatory compounds. Like you're out in forest bathing, it will soothe inflammation at the cellular level. It will cause your immune system to pump out natural killer cells that we have seen to be shown effective against fighting cancer. And just one 2-hour forest bathing session will have a lasting effect of up to 4 weeks. So what does that mean? Okay, I live in America. I'm a dad. I have, 5 kids. I have an online business. Well, I try once a month or so to go out with my family and we just have a time, like a day trip. Go up north, see some waterfalls, go to the local park. And it doesn't have to be a forest per se. It could be a a wooded park or anywhere you got some trees. We try to do that once a month or so. But you know what? It's my way of life. So right before this interview, I had a little bit of time. I went outside. Like I actually took my daughter, like we have a park, 100 yards away from us, in a little homeowners association subdivision. I took my daughter to the park and we ended up throwing rocks in the stream. And she ended up swinging for like 5 minutes. And it was like a 15-minute daddy-daughter break with my 4-year-old. But that's my way of life. It's like, let's get some fresh air. Let's get some sunlight. The thing is, it's not prescriptive. It's not like, oh, let's check the calendar. I don't have to have an alert on my phone to say, go outside and breathe. I crave it. It's like my body yearns for it intuitively. It's like, get out of this cardboard box and be one. And, that's life. I think that's abundant life. And that's how we thrive during these seasons. So yeah, if someone's in a position where they can't move very well, or if they're stuck, they're sheltering in place, or they're quarantining, whatever it is, open up the window at least. I mean, move yourself towards the window so you get sunlight like the plants. I mean, just do whatever you got to do to interact with nature. Get those, Douglas firs and citrus oils and diffuse them in your diffuser. It's you have more control than you think over your environment to create a healthy atmosphere to thrive.
I love it.
That's a mic drop. I drop my mic, and people would be like, "Bam, that's a mic drop." Hey, we're an hour into this, so if people are listening, these are the diehards. We love you. Salute. I mean, seriously, I got my 3 fingers up there. This is Hunger Games, right? It's like I love it. And these are the conversations we have to have. And this is how we have to challenge one another and encourage one another. And I'm telling you, going back to hopelessness and helplessness, if you have a friend or a loved one who is in a position where they're just not there, help them. I mean, this is where life happens now. Like, I was doing this non-professionally I've been doing this for 18 years. And then I'm very blessed. I'm fortunate to be able to make a living doing what I love doing. But this stuff, this talking, this writing, this researching, this helping people, this like, look, I just found out. Like, I'll never forget going to work, and I was working in finance, and I was, juicing green stuff. And if it could be green, I'd juice it. And the guys and gals at work would tease me, "Hey, what's in your juice today, Eric?" Right? But who do you think they went to when they got sick? No joke. It was like, "Hey, Eric, I got this. What do you think?" Like, I wasn't a doctor then. I wasn't anything other than a guy who was trying to be healthy, and I was studying a lot. And you know what? They gave me so much purpose. And that's the other thing, having a life outside your own. And that's what forest bathing does too. It's been shown to make you realize that you are truly just a speck in the microcosm. It gives you a sense of awe that there is something greater. Again, as a Christian, I'm very much I have a creation perspective here. It makes me, I don't ever feel closer to God than when I'm in nature. But also it gives me a greater appreciation. It gives me a purpose. It makes me feel like I belong. And so here I was, using oils to help with maybe an athlete's foot or an ache or a pain. And then I realized there's so much more to this. Like, why would I write another book? Like, my first book has done well. It's in like 10 different languages around the world. It's like, it's huge in my little space. Like, why write another one? Because I'm evolving. I'm shaping. I'm learning more. I realize more than ever the intricate connection we truly have with plants. And the hook is the essential oil. It's not the fiber. It's not like the non-nutritive substance that just biodegrades. That's all good too. That has a purpose. But where the true healing happens, where the lives are truly changed, it's the essential oil. It's like, wow, it can help with addiction. It can help with depression. It can help with libido. It can actually help with sexual dysfunction. Like, the number one most searched term on my website related to essential oils, and we get millions of people visiting our website every year. The number one search is essential oils for sex. That blew my mind. Because I don't have people asking me about it. Why? Obviously, it's personal,
All
but
right.
people are searching through their fingers.
What?
And so I'm like, you know what? I got to talk about this. So I did all the research on erectile dysfunction. Like, let's cover this. Let's go. Let's do it. We can
Now,
do it.
how do you know it was men searching versus women? What if it was, I mean, and what
Well, both.
sexual dysfunctions were they searching for? Was it to enhance sex, or was it because they couldn't climax? Is it because the women at a certain age are drier down there and they want to
Yeah.
maybe keep youth down there? Is it like just EDs, erectile dysfunction for men? So I'm guessing you have a section in the Essential Oils Apothecary book that's coming out on how you can use essential oils to have a healthy sex life.
We have a whole chapter on it. No joke. It's erectile dysfunction and libido.
Teach us.
Hey, can I give everyone a recipe?
I'd love that.
Okay. I love sex. And it's
Well,
okay to admit that.
I mean,
Who
you're
doesn't?
married and you have 5 kids, so you know.
Let's call out the elephant in the room here. And again, as Christians, I don't know why certain things are taboo, but if we didn't, here's the thing. I love food. I love playing with my kids. I love forest bathing. I love things that make me feel good. If sex was not desirable, you wouldn't do it. If you didn't do it, the human race would have become extinct. Think about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
At the core, it's the most primal evolutionary act that anything could do. Here's a blend. This is your blend. This is our blend. This is a blend that could change your life for a million reasons if this is an area that you want to enhance.
My mind
It's
is
my
racing right now because I know I'm like pausing for for effect, but you're going to tell us a blend of essential oils. And my mind is like, where am I applying it topically? Am I eating it? Is it like only on the man? Is it only on the woman? Like I'm already going like, and how does this get applied? Is it before sex? Is it every day? Is it during sex? So I want you to just explain it so that we all get it, like how to do this correctly.
So here, you know what? I took this book to another level, and meaning this, it dawned on me, like you just said, people have those questions, like all these little details. So what I've done for every health condition that the research could substantiate and that I could prove from my own experience, I created a blend, like a master blend. So there's this master blend I call the sensual blend. And then I show people how to use it in their diffuser, their inhaler, a spray, a massage oil, a roll-on, a bath. It's like, wow, you get one blend and you can use it for like 10 different things. Yeah. Same thing with cardiovascular disease, same thing with Alzheimer's. So this is the blend. You start off with a little baby 5 milliliter bottle. So you get an empty bottle and you can get them on Amazon. Start off with the top 15 drops of orange essential oil, 10 drops of bergamot, 10 drops of neroli, 10 drops of lavender, 10 drops of ylang ylang, 5 drops of sandalwood, 5 drops of geranium, 5 drops of jasmine, 5 drops of patchouli, 5 drops of rose, and let's round it off with 7 drops of vanilla. Okay, big question we always get is, I don't have XYZ. Okay, don't worry about it. I mean, like, this is the cool thing. Don't worry about it. I can't afford rose. Well, some people can't. I get it. And so what we found, here's a cool little hack for people, is that you could get a pre-diluted bottle of rose oil. And now most of the, companies sell this kind of stuff. So you get a pre-diluted bottle of rose in a roller bottle that's now affordable,
That could be your
right?
carrier, right? Carrier oil?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So now they dilute it, so it's a carrier oil, but yeah, you're only getting maybe 10 drops, but it's affordable because if you get a bottle of rose, that could be $200. So anyway, that's the master blend. And this is one of those things where I'm telling you, it might be worth it. It might be worth having like a make and take party at your house, and maybe your one girlfriend has jasmine, your other girlfriend has vanilla, your other
Oh,
girlfriend has rose.
good
Have fun with it,
idea. Good
right?
idea. Right. Yeah, you all go in on it. So ylang ylang is something that can trigger migraines in some people. I'm one of those people where I really can't. I mean, I'll open a bottle, I'll smell a blend with ylang ylang, and I'll close the bottle, and I'll be like, "That was fun. I hope I don't get a headache." So, some people cannot handle ylang ylang. I'm just starting to feel dizzy just thinking about it. Like I don't know what
Yeah,
it is about it.
don't use
Is
it.
will it be fine to not use it at all, or is there a ylang ylang replacement in this
That's
blend?
the thing. Yeah. No, see, that's the thing, is that this is not like baking a cake where you need to replace an ingredient or it ends up becoming like a hockey puck.
So it's
So
it's like making a salad. It's like making a really delicious salad, and here's all the ingredients. But if you don't like croutons, you don't have to have the croutons.
exactly.
Okay.
And I'll tell you though, for me, it will always maybe lack that essence of all of it. This is the synergy blend. And so yes, if you don't have any of them, or if you don't want any of them, or if you only got 3 of them, just start there. Now, this is your master blend. And this is practically speaking. Again, we give people step by step how to do all this stuff. You get this empty bottle and put a label on it. Call it your love blend, sensual blend, call it whatever blend you want to call it, label it so you remember, because if you're like me, you have like 30 blends in your medicine cabinet, and you forget what's what. So I've learned my lesson. So now you got this master blend. So what you could do is, how do you use it? Well, you could get an aromatherapy inhaler, a couple bucks on Amazon. It looks like a lipstick tube. It's basically a a glass tube with a organic cotton swab in the center of it, essentially is what it is. And you could put like 20 to 25 drops of that sensual blend in that in that aromatherapy inhaler. And what do? Keep it handy. And when you want to, quote unquote, up your engines on your libido, open the inhaler, take 10 deep breaths. And here's, I suggest this. I'll never forget when we went to My wife and I were part of a Bible class for married couples, and they explain how women are like, women are like crock pots and slow cookers, where men are like microwaves. It's just the nature of how we are. And so what you do is you start, especially if you're a woman or man who needs a little time to, stew things going, get this and take some deep breaths and think about love, think about romance, think happy thoughts about sex, because like you mentioned, and it's a shame you experienced that with ylang ylang, actually, because ylang ylang is not a known aphrodisiac. What ylang ylang does uniquely, specifically, it's an anti-anxiety, it's an anxiolytic property. And so what it does, it's been shown clinically to help reduce the stress and anxiety related to sex. That's the key. Rose is a known aphrodisiac. Jasmine, known aphrodisiac. But there's also that stressful, like again, vaginal dryness, erectile dysfunction, abuse, trauma, relationship concerns, whatever. There's a million reasons why someone would be hesitant or stressful about potentially having sex. Ylang ylang has been shown to help reduce
Hmm.
that. So you have this inhaler. That's personal. See, you could do this without anyone knowing you're doing it too, because it's personal. It's not like a diffuser that is dispersing the essential oil in the room. But with that said, get the diffuser kicking. And imagine you're trying to set the mood, and maybe you put the diffuser on, and you just enjoy a nice meal together, or you're doing like a foot rub on the couch, watching a movie, whatever. But see, the diffuser can literally shape the environment of the room. And that's where you would use it to potentially impact your partner. See, this is where a lot of wives, I've noticed, do this with husbands or women with men, because men aren't typically as open to certain things, and that's a stigma that I'm willing to stand by, because I've seen it, there's research behind it. Women by and large are the drivers of a lot of this
When you
stuff,
say
and
this
so
stuff, you mean essential oils?
of anything health related, no
Okay.
joke, anything
I was like, are
related
we talking about
to.
sex? Are we talking about like the bedroom stuff? Because I was like, men are usually the ones that are more like wanting to experiment but you're talking about health stuff. Okay, so that makes
Oh yeah,
sense.
and oils. Like you're not going to see a lot of guys. Oh, let's. No, men are, again, statistically speaking, men are not looking at, oh, let's experiment with essential oils
I,
to get us
I
into the mood,
think I
right?
think if you told the average husband this is gonna spice up the bedroom, I think that they would be the ones going, "Why haven't you put it in the diffuser yet?"
That's what I'm talking about. So yes, so guys, if you're listening, that's the thing. Like if you want to do something, say, "Hey, I just listened to this crazy lady podcast with this crazy guy, and they said something to do. Let me, like, can you mind if I put something on, whatever?" Or you could be real kind of subtle. Like this could be something where you don't even let her know. But yeah, I'm speaking to guys and
Right.
gals, but typically, most, again, most, yeah, it's fun.
So we
But
put this in the diffuser. You could also put it in a bath. Can you just walk us
massage
through?
oil.
Well, you could put it in a massage oil. We're not applying it directly on the vulva and the penis, though?
This one particularly is something that I am not concerned too much about. You want to be careful. You want to be careful. Which one specifically? Like, this is one of those things where I have no problem with it, and so my wife doesn't either. You need to dilute it to like less than 1%, though, which means 6 drops of this blend per 1 ounce of a carrier. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you get, you get a few tablespoons of coconut oil, 3 or 4 drops of this. We actually do have a lubricant recipe, and it is similar essential oils. I mean, when you have the essential oils, lavender, Roman chamomile, ylang ylang, rose, all these are safe. So yes, you can. You really can. But the key is, though, highly diluted. You can't mess around with this neat.
Okay, I'm gonna ask another question. Because in the bedroom, stuff ends up in people's mouths. Is it okay if you accidentally ingest some of this blend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
Again,
safety, like the safety
super.
around it.
Yes, exactly. And all of these, I mean, super highly concentrated. Again, of the oil that we typically don't, out of this list, people typically don't ingest jasmine. But again, you're getting like 1/10 of maybe one half of 1% of one
Yeah,
drop.
you're not supposed to drink this.
Yeah, but again, the blend though, right, in and of itself, we're only I said like 5 drops of jasmine in just the blend as a whole. And then once you put like only 2 drops of the blend, you know what I mean? Like once you get down, this is like parts per million.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, by the way, good point. Wintergreen, you don't drink. But what do you think flavors your root beer? Right. So that's my argument always with the aromatherapist. It always goes down to dosing. Yes, you don't put 5 drops of wintergreen and take it as a capsule pill because that could cause liver and kidney toxicity. But parts per billion, yes, that's what flavors our soft drinks. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
good question. All this is safe, and at the end of the day, you gotta experiment and you got to enjoy. But yes, all this is completely, if you use it the right way and follow the instructions. Follow. When's the last time you were struggling with sleep? You went to the pharmacy and you got a sleep aid and you just randomly took how many pills you wanted to without reading the instructions first. Unless you used a product, typically you would look first. Okay, how many pills should I take? That's
Right,
what I
right.
want to encourage people. You
Well,
look at the instructions.
yeah, and then there's men out there, and I know one that drank 2 bottles of cough syrup because it made him
Oh,
feel better and ended up in the hospital with acetaminophen poisoning. Because there's like there's cartoons on it and it tastes good. They make it all child flavor and it makes you feel good, and so you think you can just sip on it. You can just sip on it all weekend long while you have a head cold. And meanwhile, on the back, it's like 1 tablespoon every 8 hours. Do not exceed 4 tablespoons in a 48-hour
hmm.
period or
Yep,
whatever,
yep,
right?
yep.
And what's scary is that Costco sells lethal sized amounts. Like you can buy, when you buy cough syrup, for example, if you were to drink that in a weekend, that will kill you.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
were to take any, you can buy Tylenol or aspirin in a bottle so big that that bottle will kill you. That is too much, right? So I mean, people that don't read the instructions, right? Um, but it's kind of weird that we sell in over the counter dosages of something that are lethal, expecting people to read the tiny words on the back. Um, but yes, to your point, we need to follow the instructions, just like you would take seriously instructions on pharmaceuticals, either over the counter. At least I hope you would. I have. How is it that I have so many friends that I know of that have misused over the counter meds because society just treats drugs like candy? And they end up with these health problems, right? And even some people take them within the normal parameters, but they didn't realize that they have MTHFR or that you can't take CBD. Like I'm just recently learned this. You can't take CBD with certain pain meds because the pathways in the liver are the same and it will cause a backup in the body, right? And so you've got
Yep,
over the counter
yep,
pain meds and
yep.
over the counter CBD, and neither bottle says don't take with the other, and you take them both, and if you happen to have MTHFR as well, or if you have any other health conditions where your liver's already weak to begin with, you can go into some kind of like shock. So
Yes.
these are all over the counter things that
Yep.
we just think it's like that pharmaceuticals are safe like candy. I mean, honestly, right? So essential
Hey, can I
oils,
brag on my book for a second
I
here?
do. I
Because,
want you to, because I want
well,
people to
you know why?
understand that we can use these safely, but we have to follow the instructions, and the instructions are in your books.
I got a chart, and I didn't do it the first book, and I realized that was one of the reasons I needed to follow up. I hired somebody, and this is where, I'm good at what I do, but there's limits, right? And I recognize that. I hired a trained aromatic practitioner, aromatherapist who's a researcher, and I paid her a good amount of money because she earned every bit of it. And she spent a ton of time compiling the most exhaustive, up to date drug interaction list with essential oils possible. That's in the book. Like that right there is worth the book, is just to know. And by the way, teaser, there's not a lot of concern. There's a handful or 2 handfuls of essential oils that if you consume then you need to be careful. But by and large, topical application and inhalation, like through aromatherapy inhalers and diffusers, you don't have to worry. But there are certain oils that you better not ingest if you're on a drug. And one of them, I'll let the cat out of the bag, is so important. Everyone needs to know because so many people are on blood thinners right now. Do not be consuming clove. And that's a problem because, the big network marketing companies, they have their quote unquote immunity blend, and all of them include clove because clove oil contains some of the highest quantity of antioxidants of any substance that's available, period, exclamation point. Like the ORAC score, right? The measure of antioxidants of clove has been reported up to 1 million. Like compare that with wild organic blueberries, which is great, but that only has like a 7,000 ORAC score. We're talking 1 million. So clove, everyone's, that's a big thing. So if you're on warfarin, be very, very, very careful, or any kind of blood thinner, be very careful about consuming anything with clove. And not that I'm saying it's a guaranteed reaction, but you overdo it, you could hurt yourself. And so that's what we give people is yes. And again, people look at this stuff and everything that we're trying to do to help people is to take away that pain point of fear, because there's paralysis by analysis. I'll never forget when I was marketing, right? And when I was in the corporate world, there's ignorance on fire, right? Or paralysis by analysis. And there's a balance between the two. I want people to be educated, but the word is empowered. I want to empower people where they feel, yeah, I'm confident. Like I know what to do. And you know what? When you or your children or a loved one has something happen, and I guarantee you, someone's going to get sick, someone's going to get a boo-boo, someone's going to cut themselves. That's life. You'll know what to do. And that right there puts you in the driver's seat. So like you mentioned before, you're not running to the doctor for every little thing. And it's like, I am self-sustaining. That is worth gold. That's priceless.
Absolutely. Just thinking of how I use essential oils in my medicine cabinet, tea tree oil is like, I don't understand people that don't have tea tree oil in their medicine cabinet, because it's such a staple, has always been a staple since I started using essential oils back when I was a teenager. Um, I've had several, like maybe three in my lifetime, several, I guess three in my lifetime, um, nail bed infections. Like,
Yes.
just, I mean, they're freaking painful. Probably like more right up there with birth giving. Like, so painful.
Wow.
Oh man, so unbelievably, it was a throbbing pain, right? And, one of them was on my big toe, and that was because I was running around the jungle in with no shoes on in Florida, and I don't know what I caught, but um, tea tree oil, just dousing my toe every day in tea tree oil. But same with, I had a finger one, and then I had another toe one for some reason. It
Mm-hmm.
hasn't happened in a long time, but tea tree oil for me has always been something. But you got to be careful, right? Like dilute it correctly, that kind of stuff. I don't ingest it. Once in a while I'll get ear infections, and that is I figured out why. And I'm dairy free, and really really don't eat sugar very often, very very low sugar. All the things that you would think when you think of ear infections, but I'm allergic to latex, and I wear these studio headphones all day long. And then I was sleeping on a latex pillow. And so I was getting these ear
Mm-hmm.
infections, and
Mm-hmm.
my ear was very upset, particularly I sleep on my left side more than my right. It just unconscious when I'm sleeping is what happens. And so I was developing these ear infections, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I got garlic mullein oil and put drops of tea tree oil in it. So I supercharged my garlic mullein oil that also has calendula in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that stuff is amazing, because I've used antibiotic drops. I will not let a doctor give me antibiotics orally for an ear infection when you can just do a local. But I found that putting tea tree oil, a few drops of tea tree oil in the garlic mullein oil with calendula was more effective than when in the past I have used antibiotic drops. And so I probably had about, I don't know, 3 or 4 ear infections in the last 5 years. It's not been a lot, but each time I feel it coming on, I go immediately to the garlic mullein oil with the tea tree. I add a few extra drops just to freshen it up. Not that much. It's like a 4 ounce bottle, and I add like 2 drops because I don't want to overdo it. And then our son only once, and he's of course dairy free as well. And I keep saying that for those who don't know, the number one cause of ear, nose, and throat infections in children is cow dairy consumption.
Yep. Yep.
And this is again should be criminal. I'm getting up on my soapbox, but MD pediatricians, it should be criminal that they go to a surgery in which, by the way, they have to put a child under anesthesia, and that has killed children before. I have read the articles of the children that have died under because of anesthesia, to have their adenoids removed, their tonsils removed, and
Yep.
put tubes in their ears. All that could have been prevented from a dietary change, and that is, I mean, that should be malpractice, right? But the MD, the kind-hearted MD pediatrician, has not been taught this, right? This is not their education. This is up to us as the patients to educate ourselves. So, if you go to an ND, a naturopathic pediatrician, they are way more likely to start you off with dietary changes and herbs and essential oils and much more gentler and less invasive procedures than something that is a potentially life-threatening surgery for a child. And that doesn't solve the problem either. The immune system is still having major issues. They'll just express deeper in the body. So when you're using these drops in your ears, you have to make sure your eardrum hasn't ruptured yet. You don't want to put stuff in your ears if the eardrum's ruptured. But I used it with our son, and it immediately, I don't know why he got an ear infection. I'm not sure, it came and went, but the drops with the tea tree oil in it, garlic mullein oil with calendula and tea tree oil, made it come and go so fast. Never had a problem since. And so that's my like one thing. If I could say everyone has one essential oil, of course it doesn't smell great. It's probably not going to be like your aphrodisiac scent.
Yeah. It's not in the love chapter.
It's not a, I mean, I love it because it's like when I smell it, I feel like I'm getting out. What's that cleaner that they use in hospitals? My friend had a love affair with the scent of this. I don't know why. But it's like in Canada, they use this one cleaner in every single hospital, and when you smell it, you're like, oh, this place is disinfected. Like it smells like that. It would strip cancer off the walls. Like it is such a powerful, scent that you just know you're walking into a clean hospital. There's no MRSA here. They've already doused the place with something that has literally made every microbe die within a 100-mile radius. But when I smell tea tree oil, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna kill those germs. Like that's what it smells like to me. But it doesn't smell in any way like it's gonna uplift my mood. So I think it's good to have those two. Clary sage and rose bergamot for me are my go-to make me happy scents. Always I smell them and I'm like just immediately in a good mood. So I don't know what it is, but clary sage is really good for female hormones. I know that. And so those two are my feel good happy. I like blending them together. That's my thing. Just like you do the orange and the vanilla. So I think it's good that we experiment and figure out what makes us happy, what smells really good to us, and then go deeper and learn. Wouldn't it be cool? You smell a bunch of them at the store, figure out which one you really love, and then study that one and go, wow, it helps with eyesight, or it helps with liver function, or get the Essential Oil Apothecary book and start smelling ones you never smelled before, and then go, wow, this one really resonates with me. I'm going to learn more about it because it resonates with you. So we could look at it from the standpoint of, I have liver disease. I want to heal my liver disease. Let's go through the apothecary book and learn how to do that. Or we could go and just smell a bunch of essential oils, find ones that make us really happy, and then start studying those just to start, right? Then we can do either way with your book.
You mentioned something that, quite frankly, warrants an entire conversation, and I'm sure we're wrapping up here in a minute, so I don't know how long we have to talk about this, but your experience with tea tree is very similar to my experience with lavender, because you have in tea tree. imprinted you. You have like a neurological response. It's like gravity. It's like your reflex response. It's almost automatic. And so that could have that could have the opposite effect. Like, that's why I talk about abuse and trauma as well, is that uh, the olfactory system directly impacts and will create a neurological impulse to your limbic system, your memory, your mood, your emotions, right? And so, what's really fascinating about this is it's worth the effort and lifelong benefits of finding something that really works for you. And I guess, as a warning, as a rule of thumb, you know, maybe, and I'll just throw this out there for you, Ashley, maybe there is a biochemical something or another that we don't really understand truly, but maybe biologically, your chemistry just interacts with ylang ylang in such a way where I don't know, it doesn't, I don't know, like maybe your body rejects it, or maybe something happened, right, subconsciously when there was ylang ylang scent or aroma in the air around you. And I found that whether it's trauma, whether it's abuse, whether it is a negative, stressful experience, some people, when they smell an essential oil, they automatically, like, whoa, they like find themselves agitated. Like, that's not necessarily the fact that the oil could be synthetic, it could be adulterated, but we find a lot that is people, something happened. That's why folks like my friend Dr. Tony Jimenez, who runs the Hope for Cancer clinics around the world, he has all of his patients go through emotional recall therapy. And because according to him, cancer is really at its root an emotional disorder. And so all of his patients go through emotional recall therapy. And Dr. Leslie and the other doctors that do this, they're using aromatherapy as an anchor. So whatever aroma it is that makes you feel good at that moment is the anchor during the sessions, so that when something happens, and invariably it does, in the future, you smell that aroma, it brings you back to the point of healing that you were going through during your sessions. And for me, I had such a wonderful spiritual epiphany in a
Mm.
season of my life, and I was introduced to lavender. And in fact, I was introduced to essential oils through a lavender hand soap. And believe it or not, it was lavender that every single time I smell lavender, it reminds me of 18 years ago when I became a Christian. It reminds me of that dramatic, I was blind, now I see moment when I was being mentored and loved and unconditionally accepted by people. And that wasn't my life experience before that. And so today, lavender is an anchor for me and will be, God willing, for the rest of my life. And so for you, for whatever reason, tea tree. And there may be something, who knows, with ylang ylang, who knows, maybe at the deep subconscious level, something, just something. It could have been anything, like hearing bad news, like maybe, and that's the thing about today in 2021, who has not been traumatized? Like, at some microscopic level of even literally being forced to stay in your home outside of your will without leaving, or whatever it might be. Who has not had some sort of micro or macro traumatic experience in the last year? You'd be hard pressed to find anybody, myself included. So, with that said, what triggers that experience in you? A food, a smell, a hearing sensation, a music? Like, now is the time more than ever to be truly cognizant and in tune with who you are. And I'm not here to be a false prophet or the bearer of bad news, but I'm telling you something. Mark my words on this. We're going to see such a rampant case of PTSD across the globe. And people don't even realize they're living through it now. It's like they don't realize that they need to process the micro trauma and the macro trauma, whether it is just whatever, someone dies, whether it's you lose a job, whether it's you lose some freedoms or health freedoms or whatever it might be. This has been such a traumatic experience in a season that has lasted now, what, nearing a year and a half plus 2 years, depending on when you're listening to this. And the long lasting effects are going to be forever unless we truly come to terms and grip and bring healing. So why am I mentioning this? Well, aromatherapy can help you through this whole process. And just truly, Trust me, do yourself a favor. Be in tune with yourself. Listen, even if it's at an intuitive level. Like if you feel drawn away from something, listen to that warning. If you feel drawn to something, follow it, right? With reckless abandon. Do what you need to do to feel good and to have yourself be in a place where you allow yourself to be well.
Mm, I love it. Well, I hope listeners want to follow this with reckless abandon. Well, I mean, with caution also on our side to
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do it responsibly and using moderation, uh, because we can replace chemicals, artificial things with essential oils, and you're showing us how. I interviewed Dr. Klinghardt, who has been an MD, medical doctor, for over 40 years. But it's a very interesting interview because people come from around the world to see him. His clinic, one of his clinics, is in my backyard, but he is famously known around the world as being a doctor you go to when you don't know what the heck is wrong. When every other
Yes.
doctor when you've been like to the Mayo Clinic and the Cleveland Clinic, like
Yes.
every
Yep.
clinic, and they all kind of say we don't know what's wrong with you. Then people find Dr. Klinghardt. So he regularly reverses really, really bad Lyme disease, really weird like parasitic infections and also has an amazing track record for getting children to no longer be on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our interview, we talk about this. Are they truly autistic, or did they just have autistic-like symptoms? Because
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
you and I were kids, it was very rare to ever meet a child with true autism. It was very, very rare. And now almost every classroom, because statistically it's like 1 in 30 or something, every classroom could technically have a child with autism in it.
Mm-hmm.
So is it real autism? When it goes from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 30 in one generation, in less than one generation, something is amiss. And so I think it's autism like symptoms. I don't think it's true autism. I think a lot of children are being misdiagnosed because it's all the same symptoms, and that's because of well, several things, but one is the inability to detox heavy metals, which end up in the brain tissue, and this is one of the causes of that. It's glyphosate. Glyphosate will bind to heavy metals and release them into kidney tissue and into brain tissue, because glyphosate is a chelator that will release heavy metals when pH changes, and blood changes pH when it changes to another liquid. So, for example, blood to urine, blood to cerebrospinal fluid. And this is something we covered. I have 2 interviews with Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who's a PhD, MIT top research scientist, and she goes through this. So that's why I had Dr. Klinger on the show to talk about heavy metal detox. And through that, he spoke about his experience being trained as an MD in Germany. In his medical school, he was taught, while he was being taught surgery, he
Mm-hmm.
was being taught uh, acupuncture and homeopathy,
Oh.
and as well as all the other things that MDs are taught, like pharmaceutical drugs, right? But he walks out of it's one part of Germany that's very holistic. He walks out of medical school, comes to America over 40 years ago, thinking it's probably more like 45 years ago now, thinking every doctor knows how to use homeopathy. Every doctor, right? Every doctor. And boy, was he surprised. So he says, my favorite thing to do as an MD, because remember, his training is MD. He still knows every drug known to man, right? And when to use them. He says, my favorite thing is to not use drugs. My favorite thing is to find something in nature that works better than drugs
Mm-hmm.
and use that instead. And if he has to use a drug like a chelator, let's just say that's the only it's more beneficial. He weighs the risks, and it's more beneficial to use a drug-based chelator for that one client or one patient. Then that's what he'll do. But his thing is, look what we can do with essential oils and herbs and homeopathy, and look what we can do with plants first. So his whole mantra for over 40 years of practicing medicine has been, I will find a plant that does the job better. And if I don't, then I'll go to the drug. But most of the time, he ends up using a plant. And could you imagine if you go to your cardiologist and they'll go, well, I see that your LDL lipids are high. I'm seeing your cholesterol levels aren't really trending in the right direction. Your A1C is getting up there. I'm not happy with your high blood pressure. You know, we could put you on blood pressure meds, metformin. We could put you on a cholesterol lowering medication. Of course, all of this will lead to a lower life expectancy and more complications in the future. But instead, I'd really like to get you on some lavender oil. I want to cut out the peanut oil in your diet and the omega 6s, and I really would like to get you eating more plants and antioxidants, and let's get you on some of those essential oils that have antioxidants in them. And let's get you walking every day and out in nature. And then come back in 3 months and let's retest you. Could you imagine? I just did an interview with a doctor that talked about how they did several studies and they found that dark chocolate was something like 66 times more effective than cholesterol lowering medication when it came to the outcomes of preventing heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they're not prescribing that, but they're prescribing something that causes side effects and harms us. So I'm a big advocate for your book. I'm really excited that it's coming out. I think it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people because they can look to these less invasive things first to make the changes.
And that's the lifestyle, because you know what you're proposing and what you're sharing is reality for a growing number of people. And out of all the things that have happened to us lately, one of the greatest things is this mass awareness and discussion that we're having on, okay, well, let's revisit immune health. Let's revisit what we're doing. People are questioning and people are looking and they're starting to investigate. And a lot of doctors, a lot of medical doctors are starting to see, and it's wonderful. It really is. Things come full circle, Ashley, and that's really this a cycle of life, and that's where I'm at when it comes to we're not too far away. Like this drug phenomenon that we've been in has taken the world by storm, all because of greed and political influence. Yet we're not even 100 years away. I mean, like we're not like in the scheme of things. What's 100 years in the timeline of humanity? That's as far gone as, I mean, that's, we're not
Mm-hmm.
even 100 years into this new revolution. And when you look at chronic disease, which is the purpose and the sole motive behind why I did what I did with the Essential Oils Apothecary, when you look at the number of diseases that are rising up as the primary causes of death, like that's an issue. I mean, people were dying. You know, life expectancy, and I get this a lot. And this is one of the arguments that people say, well, you know, look at our life expectancy. Well, yeah, because we don't have bubonic plague and dark plagues, and we're not like drinking and urinating and bathing in the same water. Like, that's why. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, like basic sanitation really was the solution to like most diseases before the chronic disease epidemic started 100 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really eye opening when you look at it. Because I don't know. I have a biblical worldview, and Moses died at 120. I believe it. I believe it. I believe that when I see, you know, when I read the Bhagavad Gita or when you look at your ancient scriptures, you're seeing people live to a ripe old age and they're healthy and strong. That to me is the promise that we have available to us. And this body is wonderfully adept and adapting to adapt, essentially, to regenerate, to heal. And if using essential oils as part of your holistic lifestyle can help, hallelujah, go for it. So that's it.
Right.
I mean, I love
Right.
it.
And there's so many religions, ancient cultures that have documented use of essential oils. The thieves blend is something that's certain brands out there will sell, certain essential oil brands will sell, but the thieves blend is the rumored to be the blend that was used during the bubonic plague. Grave robbers would wear all these herbs, and if they could get essential oils out of them, they would have, but they wore all these herbs, and these herbs helped them to stay healthy while they were thieves, right? Basically being exposed to the plague. um I love that blend, the thieves blend. And everyone does, every company does their own sort of version of it, but it's sort of like that highly disinfectant, really great for these times when people are a little bit more on edge when it comes to
Hmm.
having a cold or flu. Because even if you're not worried about getting COVID, and maybe you've already had it, or you're not letting fear into your life. The problem is if anyone these days develops a basic cold, a little sniffle, everyone around you is paranoid. Like my friend had to pull her kid out of school this week because he had a runny nose. No other symptoms, a runny nose.
Yep.
And he has to now go get a COVID test and quarantine and wait for the COVID test before he's allowed back to school. And I get it. This is the stressor that we're all living under, which is why we should bathe ourselves in the forest bathing of essential oils, bring nature into us to help de-stress. But if you had just a basic little cold, little sniffle, little sinus thing, everyone around you kind of looks at you like, "Oh my gosh, are you going to kill me?" So I'm leaning towards using more and more the Thieves Blend. I know maybe you could tell us what your version of the Thieves Blend is. I believe there's isn't there clove and there's thyme in it. What other
Well,
herbs?
the immune boosting blend of the variety of it, one version of it was shown clinically in research trials to kill the flu virus in vitro.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the list. I mean, our version of it. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned it because I'll give you guys and gals listening. Let me pull it up. I want to make sure because I make it like all the time for me and my kids. But let me quote. Let me pull it up on my book because it's really kind of cool. We share immune boosting strategies in the book, obviously, because if your immune system is dampened, you're not going to be able to really beat chronic disease. So our immune boosting blend that we recommend is going back to your 5 milliliter bottle that we shared earlier with the love blend. You get 10 drops of cinnamon bark essential oil, 10 drops of clove bud, 10 drops of eucalyptus. And personally, I have not found a difference between Eucalyptus globulus or Eucalyptus radiata, whatever. I mean, it's one of those things, whatever frankincense you got, whatever orange you got, whatever eucalyptus, they have such similar properties and chemical structures that there's no like major difference in this case. 10 drops of lemon, 10 drops of orange, and 10 drops of rosemary. That's our immune boosting blend,
Mm.
completely safe to consume, safe properly, of course, safe to apply topically. Again, remember clove and warfarin. Remember your blood thinners and your drug interactions. But what we do is here's a little recipe. My kids call it healthy butter. Um, I love this immune boosting snack as part of our like prophylactic um, immune boosting strategy when it was in flu season, but now it's like, okay, we'll just take this, especially when COVID hit, this was something we took on a regular basis just because we weren't sure what was happening with that thing. Now we've kind of settled down where we're not taking it every day. But here's our recipe. Start with a tablespoon of an unsweetened nut butter. Like we love creamy almond butter, or if you could get nutso butter, I love nutso. We get that at Costco. It's a mixture of a bunch of different nuts. Or you can get sunflower butter, something, and a nut butter and get one serving of a non-flavored liposomal vitamin C. It's a form of vitamin C that is highly absorbable. I'm sure you've had people in the past talk about it on your show. 1 teaspoon of raw honey. I like Manuka honey, extremely beneficial for health and immune boosting. 1 teaspoon of organic virgin coconut oil, 2 drops of this immune boosting blend I mentioned before.
Hmm.
And I like a quarter-ish teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. And for those people in
Ooh.
Australia who ask me, what is that? Because you don't know what that is, because that's American. I've had this question a lot. It's basically a mixture of, the spices you would put in pumpkin pie. Like that would be cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, allspice, and a tiny pinch of Himalayan pink salt. You mix that together. Yum. Like spoon it up or eat it solo or add some freshly cut veggie sticks or apple slices. That's what my kids call healthy butter. That, I kid you not, that version of that to the nth degree, because I like 10x that, was how my wife and I managed pneumonia when we had black mold in our home.
Whoa.
And this is when I added, like, I stretched this to the point because we took antibiotics because and I'll confess, the only time I've taken antibiotics in the last 20 years. And I took him because I was about to launch a health summit. And I was on the other side of the microphone and I was interviewing about 15 people. I had pneumonia
Oh,
and I had
geez.
15. I don't know what would you do? Like I had a choice.
Well,
This
you
is my
get to a
livelihood.
point. So the thing is with
Yeah. And
the
yeah, it didn't work.
we believe that emergency allopathic medicine is there for us when we need it, and we try to avoid it by not putting our head in the sand. Like the creator of the Muppets, like I mean, God rest his
Yeah.
soul. I absolutely
Jim Henson.
I love Jim Henson. He was so afraid of doctors that he didn't do anything to take care of himself, and he died of the common cold. Basically, he it just
Yeah.
developed into pneumonia, and he died. But he could have seen. I mean, he had access to. He lived in New York City. He had access to the world's top, traditional Chinese medicine. Like as an example, like he could have gone and done herbal medicine, anything. But he chose in reading his the end of his life, reading the description of what happened, he was so afraid of doctors, he chose to do nothing. We're not saying don't take antibiotics and don't do anything. We're saying, if you have a cold, like try everything else first. And if it gets to the point where it's pneumonia, you know what? Antibiotics might be what you need, right? Like I'm not gonna fault
Well, let
you
me tell you
there.
my story though, because here's the
Yeah,
thing. And I guess this is my confession. This is like I'm real. I'm a person, right?
right.
So I tried everything I could to knock this thing out naturally. I had a huge deadline. My livelihood was depending on this project. I went to the doctor. I got an antibiotic, which helped reduce the coughing and things for the 2, 3 weeks that I needed to during this interview. But you know what happened? As you would think, it came back again. I got sicker than what I was before. And
Ooh.
that's where now no joke. So for me it backfired and but it got me through this little hump and I didn't have a solution. By the way, here's the thing about drugs. Drugs are designed to have immediate impact quick where natural solutions virtually every time will take a little longer. It's just the nature of it. It takes the body time to respond. That's why our antifungal yeast infection tampon recipe will has been shown clinically to knock it out within 3 days. But you take an antifungal drug, and that's a lot quicker. And most women, who wants to wait 3 days? Or so I get that. So I was at beside myself because yeah, I went through my 20 interviews I had to do. I did my summit, I did all the stuff, but I was sicker than I was, and I was like, that's when a friend of mine introduced me to liposomal vitamin C, and I was like, wow. And then this was a long time ago, and this is when I was introduced to this immune boosting blend Manuka honey combination, and it's like I took like 10 doses of this a day. And between that and getting a proper air purifier to help with the black mold that we found, that healed my wife and I of pneumonia. And so for us, I have recognized the impact of medicine and natural medicine when used appropriately. But yeah, that recipe I shared with you is the modern tasty version of what we put together years and years ago, when, quite frankly, medicine failed us because that's what happens to people. You go from prescription to prescription to prescription, and then you never get well, and that's where I recognize, unless I've exhausted my resources, um, I'm not going to try it. And so, to your point, don't judge yourself. Don't let yourself get beat up. Like if you're at a point where whatever it is, like you got to do what you got to do. You got to be you. And even if that's taking chemotherapy or radiation, like you got to be true to who you are and you got to live to the light that you have. And me too. Like we all are destined, I believe, to walk different paths. But trust me on this, regardless, and this is so important. This is the importance of integrative medicine. Regardless of what you choose, if you choose, don't think of it as an all allopathic, all natural. Like you should always incorporate natural solutions with regardless. So it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to take chemo, I can't use essential oils. No, that is a lie. That medicine uneducated practitioners promote that we're trying to correct, but the ones that get it, the ones that are truly integrative, I can't tell you how many people I've known, and of the millions of people that follow us, this is a common thing that we get through emails and chat and text message that we get through our support team, is that their oncologists tell them not to use essential oils and supplements while they're on chemo. Says who? There's absolutely zero research to talk. Like this is the stuff I cover in the book on my cancer chapter. Like, says who? Like, if you talk to an educated oncologist, truly educated, who knows the literature, they'll say, well, there's virtually no risk. Let's watch it together. Let's do this together, not this no yes hard line in the sand. That's malpractice, in my opinion. So, by the way, we filmed the documentary. I don't know if you watch this, Ashley. I gotta, I'll send you a DVD of it. If you want a free screening of a documentary that we produced about a woman's story, an integrative cancer story, go to hopeforbreastcancer.com. We were so inspired by this that my wife and I donated $50,000 to the Independent Cancer Research Foundation to send a woman to the Hope for Cancer Clinic in Cancun to get integrative treatments. And
Mm.
we documented her journey, and she goes through it. Like, she did things in secret because, afraid of what her oncologist would say, because a US based oncologist was not supportive of
Oh,
XYZ. And that's the environment. Like, that's the wrong doctor to have. And it's not
yep.
judgmental against anyone. It's like, look, find someone who respects you and will support you for what you want to do. And if there is a firm contraindication based off of the science, then yes. But by and large, telling someone on chemotherapy that they shouldn't take vitamin C because it can counteract the immune, what in the world? It's nonsense. Like, that's nonsense. And so what we're doing is we're challenging all of us, myself included, to really think and work together, because we do not want a line in the sand where we're not willing to cross over. Like, we want unity. We don't want division here. So yes, yes, you can and should never, ever cast aside your natural solutions. You should always have that be part of your way of life. And when needed, yeah, thank God medicine's there. I mean, really, thank God for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people whose lives have been saved by
Mm-hmm.
medicine. But don't think it's an all or nothing thing. And so for us, yeah, of course, I mean, granola as you get, we're the home birth. We don't do all these other things, but we know what to do when it's time. And when it's time to go to the hospital because we did our stuff.
Right.
But it's knowing that you have most things. And in my first book, I don't have the quote in front of me, but in my first book, I quoted a urgent care doctor who essentially, my paraphrase said, 75 to 80% of the people that come to the urgent care have no business being there. Simple things that they should be able to manage themselves. This is from an urgent care doc. And it's about, let's flip that on its head. And it's a wonderful, wonderful journey of supplements, proper nutrition, mind body practices, and using plant based medicine like essential oils. So,
Mm-hmm.
wow, what a wonderful chat. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's the trick is what know when to use what. And on the flip side, there are people this year, and I'm friends of some of them who have died this year because they didn't seek medical help, because they didn't want to go to the emergency room and they weren't sure if they should, right? So on the flip side, we need to be better at listening to our body day to day, to be incorporating preventive medicine day to day, and to be seeking help. Don't be ashamed or scared to seek help, seek advice. Hey, is this normal? Hey, should I get this checked out? If you have health insurance, I'm pretty sure all health insurance does this nowadays. Telemedicine with a nurse, telemedicine with a
Yep.
doctor. Within minutes, you could be on the phone with someone saying, hey, these are my symptoms. Like, what do you think? Should I just book an appointment? Should I do a telemedicine appointment with my doctor in a few days? Is this urgent? Having stuff at home like a thermometer, a pulse oximeter, and a blood pressure cuff allows you to just check your vitals yourself, make sure that they're calibrated, that they work,
Yes,
um,
yes.
and just don't put your head in the sand. But but there's no harm in incorporating something that will boost you, that will support you, like incorporating essential oils when done healthfully, rather than wait till you're so sick that you need a larger intervention, like you need the hammer. I'd rather handle it when it's a whisper in the body than wait till my body is screaming and being hit by a 2x4. When we see people recover from, let's say, infection, it's health isn't never being sick, right? Health is how quickly we recover. And that also goes for mental and emotional health too. When I lost
Yep.
my mom to cancer, we were best friends. And to lose her so suddenly, she was diagnosed in Easter and died in July. So
Oh,
it was,
wow.
and she was the epitome of health to me. And that's, so she actually ignored little signs in her body because she just thought, oh, whatever. She had moved from Canada to Florida. She was doing new routines. She ignored that there were little aches and pains or little warning
Yeah.
signs for about a year. She ignored them. And just thought, and just kind of plowed through because she had a strong constitution.
Yep.
Ignoring,
Yep.
we don't want to ignore, we don't want to overreact, but you don't want to ignore either. And by the time she found the cancer, because she was already such a strong and healthy person, it was riddled everywhere in her body. And
Oh, wow.
someone who like eats a standard American diet would have been bedridden, but she was like up and running because she was like healthy in other ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
but she died very quickly, and I was left with wanting to heal emotionally as healthfully as
Mm.
possible. And so I did a lot of personal growth work, and I found one man who mentored me. He was one of the original Landmark Forum leaders, and he had suddenly lost his brother halfway through leading a course in front of 200 people. And he taught me some really interesting things about being with grief and not resisting it, but being with it. And he said, it's being healthy is not about, like, emotionally healthy too, is it's not about never being sad or never being depressed. It's how quickly you're going to bounce back. It's that muscle that you build. How quickly can you get out of victim mode, get out of reaction mode? How quickly can you come back into peace, come back into learning, come back into understanding? How quickly can you recover from that and learn from it
Yep.
and grow
Yep.
from it and heal, right? And be with the emotions too. Don't resist them, don't push them down. And same goes for physical ailments. We're all going to be exposed to microbes. This is a dirty world we live in, and that's good. We're made up. We have more cells that are not us than are us in us and on us, right? We have more bacteria
Yeah.
than we have cells, right? So there's we are all part of this microcosm of good and bad bacteria for us, right? And viruses and all that stuff. And it's the environment of the body that determines how quickly we can recover from that. My friend just less than 2 weeks ago broke her leg skiing. She is already walking, not a walking cast. It's like a cast she can take on and off. She's already walking on it. The doctor said 6 months to repair. She's like, "Are you kidding me?"
Ah.
She's doing salves on it. She's doing everything known to man, all the essential oils and all the homeopathy, and eating everything that's super super bone building, healthy for her. And her doctor also is cool. He said, "Listen to your body," because she's like, "Can I walk on it? Can I put weight on it?" He goes, "Listen to your body." And she's able to put weight on it and walk a little bit on it with no pain. She's listening to her body. But could you imagine if your mindset of health is, I'm going to practice preventive medicine every day so that when I do get sick, I recover quicker. So when I do injure myself,
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
heal faster than I would if I just, ate McDonald's and waited till I need to be put on antibiotics. So that's the philosophy, right? We've talked about the mindset of healing, and that's why I think we want to have the Essential Oils Apothecary as one of the books in our library so that we can go to essential oils and use them on a regular basis as the herbal medicine that supports us in building our bodies up mentally, emotionally, spiritually building ourselves up. Thank you so much, Dr. Eric Z, for being on the show. This has been a lot of fun. I'd love to, continue coming back, continue teaching, bringing us more recipes. And I'm really looking forward to having my hands on your book. I know it's coming out soon, and listeners can pre-order it. But it's going to be out soon, and it's going to be great as it's also good. I mean, I'm already thinking of Christmas. It's going to be great as a Christmas gift. Gotta
Oh, yes. I hope. Yes, it's perfect timing.
right?
And yeah, thank you. It's always wonderful. You bring so much insight, and quite frankly, you're an expert in your own right and in so many things. It's just so impressive and so wonderful, refreshing to hear. And I know you have a wonderfully loyal and educated listener base. So everyone listening, especially at this point, like how long are we into this? 2 hours or so. Like this is the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% here at this point, unless people just fast forward to the end. I mean, good for you. Good for us,
Go back and listen.
Yeah, go back, listen. It's like join our ranks, like this is health evangelism. Like the more people we could reach, this is how we change the world. This is how we encourage people. This is how we take away that essentially just that power that's been robbed,
Hmm.
taken, in a sense, stolen. And not necessarily there's like not a nefarious organization we can pinpoint, but I'll never forget when a girlfriend of my wife's told me like she wanted her power back, meaning she bought land in Costa Rica, she got seeds, like lots of seeds in case, to start growing her own farm, and she started doing things herself. Like she felt disempowered by just life, by the system.
Mm.
She lived in Boston, and it was just a very disempowering experience for her. And I'll never forget though. She said, "I want my power back." You're like, wow, that's like that was one of those indelible things. When you live your life and people say something like that was what 15 years ago that she said that to me, I think. And it was one of those things that I'll never forget. So if you feel disempowered, then yeah, let continue learning from Ashley. Be empowered. Pick up my book, Essential Oils Apothecary. And I will leave you with this, folks, because a lot of, unfortunately, we've actually talked about some things that are not in the book because I have a limit. Like I couldn't write a 1,000-page book. My publisher's like, oh no, the spine will break. Like you can only actually have so many, literally. Like I have so many references in my book. We had to shrink the font and all that. Like I don't even know. Like I got to double check at this point. Like we might even need to like put the references on my website. So we created a series of demo videos that walk people through. You mentioned joint disorders, like broken bones. Like we helped heal our son of a broken clavicle, fractured clavicle, within like 2.5, 3 weeks. Got
Nice.
him out of his cast like a month ahead of time. And we have our bone strengthening remedy that we actually walk you through how to make. And then we start talking to you about some other cool stuff in our video series. So go to eoapothecary.com to order the book, but redeem our little sweet special gift bonus package for just, we want to help you. Like, and if you're like me, you're a visual learner, and a lot of people love reading, but it's really cool to see something in action. So that's why we created that video series, and it's free. It's just our gift to you. And we'd appreciate if you buy the book, and then we can teach you how to get the most out of it. So this has been wonderful. It really has been. Thank you so much for having me.
Wasn't that wonderful? I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Dr. Eric Zielinski. You can go to learntruehealth.com/EO. That's learntruehealth.com/EO to not only pre-order or order his book, but to also get a ton of fantastic downloads from him that he's giving away for those who order his book through his website. So you definitely want to make sure that you get those. You don't want to miss out by ordering from somewhere else like Amazon, because you will miss out on all those awesome downloads that he's gifting to all the listeners who go to learntruehealth.com/EO. Please share this episode with those you care about that love essential oils or could definitely use the 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 turning, how did he put it, hopelessness into happiness. There have been times in the last few months that I have felt quite stuck, depressed, overwhelmed, and hopeless. and prayer, connection with my family, my husband and our son, and also utilizing essential oils, something as easy as uncapping it and taking a really deep breath of sweet orange or clary sage or rose geranium, taking a nice few deep breaths, applying some topically to my wrists or putting it in the diffuser, and or putting some on my clothing or my bath or my foot bath, and just taking some deep breaths and using the essential oils to center myself, come back to now, breathe. It has helped me to get unstuck. So from an emotional standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, it is helping me heal. And then essential oils are fantastic for really day-to-day real world applications, the improving your immune system, cuts, bruises, that kind of thing, sleeping better, improving mood, cranky kids. My son has some essential oils that he loves. He's been using roll-ons for a very long time, and he loves them too. And he picks out his own, and he particularly loves lavender. So it's fun. It's fun to use. It's herbal medicine that's fun to use with the whole family, and it's such a great remedy when we are up against it, and a lot of people are up against it this year. So it's a fantastic gift to give to someone, giving them a little roll-on of lavender or eucalyptus or peppermint. For muscle tension, sometimes it's great just to center yourself and breathe and relax and bring us back into the parasympathetic nervous system of rest and digest instead of being in the fight or flight mode, right? Please share this with those you care about. We've got to get this information out there. Could you imagine if everyone just turned to essential oils, prayer, and connection with loved ones first before going for drugs, right? And I'm not saying that, like, drugs have their place, but sometimes people go straight to drugs without trying natural medicine. And herbs in the form of essential oils is so easy to use. And that's why I love the Essential Oils Apothecary book, because it's something that we can just start little bit by little bit using, and it's fun, and it will uplift you, and in some cases really make a huge difference. So whether it makes a little difference or a big difference, it's so worth it. It's so worth just trying it and exploring it. And that's why I love the book, The Essential Oils Apothecary. So check it out, learnjurelt.com/EO, and please share this with those you care about, because we can uplift each other and help each other. Thank you so much, and have yourself a fantastic rest of your day.